Hi guys, welcome to our podcast. I have today Mat Broughton. Woo! If you don't know, this is the man behind the camera, behind the sound. Last week we convinced him to come on, so I'm so excited. Okay, I'm gonna introduce him.
Always there and never seen.
Yeah. If you were at church on Sunday, he's like hiding in another room also, like
right
with the live stream. So, excuse me. I'm still trying not to cough. I'm still trying not to cough.
It's been like months.
It's like a month and a half.
Yeah.
It's crazy. I got an inhaler. That didn't really work. It just made me really jittery. And now I have like Sprouts herbal things that I'm taking, and I don't know. But, so excuse me when I cough. But I had texted Matt. And I was like, can you give me like a title? Like, what exactly do you do? And
I sent you like a paragraph.
Yeah, I'm going to read it because I'm not going to remember this off the top of my head. But he is the owner of MatieB Productions, a multimedia production company. And then basically he's a cinematographer or videographer. Does photography, photo and video editing, drone pilot. You're a drone pilot?
I am a drone pilot.
Whoa. Yeah. Audio visual technician. He does live streaming and then so much more. But ... Yeah, there's and the list goes on. So I was like, I want to have you on because we are talking about light out in the world. We were just chatting about it right now before we started, and so many people either are wanting to go into do something like this, or they're afraid to, or they think maybe they're limited. They think that being a Christian only looks like being a pastor,
right?
Or which is so great, but that's like what are you called to do? And maybe you love photo and video, and maybe you love, I don't know, maybe you feel called to minister to people that are more wealthy than you, or you know. And I don't want this series, I've mentioned like every week that we have, it's to influence the city, but I want to like really encourage people. I want guests to encourage people with their walk, even if it's been tough and wild and unexpected, you know?
Wild.
Yeah. To like help, like maybe encourage people, go like be a light of the world. And even if it's I say like covert, like maybe it's not super obvious or out there, but like maybe it's in your own way. So I was like, I really want you to come on because you have so much.
Totally.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, even Monica's here with us today.
Yeah, Monica.
And what she has learned over the last couple of years, and the team that we've developed are people where I went to school for this. I've been doing this for 17 years.
That's
but
so cool.
we have a lot of people that have no background in this, and what they've been able to learn is just incredible. And people like Monica that now are trained, that could come with me on a real production job and knows what to do. She knows the whole live stream.
Has she come before?
She hasn't. No.
Oh, that was sweet.
But she could, and you know, without me even there, she can set up and run the whole live stream setup, which is extremely complicated.
Yeah.
So it is really cool to see what we've been able to develop, and the people that have been hungry for this to join the team. And
more people, come on. I think it's like underrated. Like people don't understand how cool it is. Like I want so badly to help you guys all the time.
Well,
like,
you were for a while back in the day. Yeah.
I just love capturing with camera and the sound at the same time. It's so much fun. Like it's like a dance.
Totally.
To me.
Well, and I didn't even fully realize the impact of what we were doing.
Oh
I had one time at the warehouse that a woman came up to me in tears that I didn't recognize, and she said she had broke her leg and for 3 months wasn't able to come to church, and that the live stream got her through and kept her connected.
Yeah.
And you know, people that have reached out from all over the country, all over the world. You know, in the chat we see people coming in from Arkansas and Washington State and all over, and the, you know, we're planting this seed, and the ripple, the butterfly effect of that, you know, these things not only live but are living on YouTube, and it's like someone in Africa 10 years from now
so cool.
sees an old sermon.
A small little church in Ventura.
Right? I mean, you really don't know what God can do with it and the impact. And for me, it was easy for it to just become a job.
Yeah.
Right? To come in on a Sunday morning and be like, it's go time, go, go, go. And it's like, I do this for a living, so it just becomes another production. and to see some of those things come back and,
That's so
and be like, whoa, like
you're part of that.
This is a ministry, and like what God is doing here is really incredible.
It's its own, like, that's so powerful because like I've seen so many emails come through, and Clover, who's handling emails at that time, is like, or maybe she still is, but we got people are watching from blah 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 this place, and it's not just wow, cool. It's like, no, they have like a testimony.
Yeah.
And they send the testimony, or like they come in person and they're like, I've been streaming for like 2 years from the state and I'm finally here. And it's like, or someone moves here because they want to be involved in the community. I'm like, that's so cool.
Yeah.
So.
Well, even
really cool.
Parker said that he watched all the old seasons of the podcast, and that when he came here, that him and his wife felt like they already knew everybody. Mm-hmm. Because they had watched all the seasons and they had all of the backstory, and it was a much easier transition
in
because of that. Or Pastor Brad told me one time I think he was in Carpinteria at a bank, and a guy behind him said, Pastor Brad, is that you? And he turned around and he was like, didn't recognize the guy.
Oh, wow.
And he's like, you're my pastor. And he's like, do you come to Two Trees? And he's like, no, we've never been in the building.
Wow. See?
But we're like in between churches and we didn't know what to do. We found the live stream and we watch every single week. And
that's crazy.
Literally, he's like, you are my pastor. And they've never stepped foot in the building.
Wow. I have not heard that story.
Yeah.
That's crazy.
Yeah.
That's so sweet. You never know what, like, the ministry of what you can do with camera. And it's not about,
100%,
it's not about like, we want to get it out there so that people come here. Like, that's not even the mindset at all. It's like, we want to capture what God's doing
100%.
in our space. And there's sometimes we're like, should we even have a camera in the room for certain things? And we like worship night. And sometimes I'll like put one up on a phone, but it's like, sometimes there's moments we don't want to capture it.
I've definitely been there. You were there. We had a night that was up at, I think we were at Landon's old house up on the Riviera. That Brad said, be discreet, but come with a camera. We want to capture what's going on here. And I was in tears at the end of it because I felt guilty. I felt like, I'm like, this is it became such a sacred moment when the Holy Spirit just like dropped. And I was like, it felt wrong to record that.
Oh, wow.
And also like the desire to just like drop the camera and like fall on my face.
Yeah.
But feeling like I had like an obligation.
Oh, wow.
And afterwards, like Brad and Landon and everybody told me, they're like, dude, if you feel that, like we don't need the recording. Let go.
How do you train people to feel that, like to follow? I guess it's like follow the Holy Spirit, but to know when you can't do that in all kinds of jobs, but you can do that with us. Like when it's just like drop it. And I've heard testimony where musicians drop their instruments in those moments also. And they're like, I'm not even going to play because this is a moment like people are leading themselves and like, I can't even play. And I need to drop their instruments and they're just like, let it go.
Right.
And it's still carrying. Anyway, that's so good. That makes me sad. Like, just let go. Just let go. It doesn't matter. But you were very discreet also. And like, But that was a really good night.
There's definitely a balance there because it's like, I do feel an obligation. It's like I'm on staff for Two Trees. It's like this is also a job for me, and so. There is that feeling of an obligation to like perform and do what I'm supposed to do, but definitely finding that balance.
How do you? Okay, so I want to go like back to kind of go over like how you got involved with all of this. You went to school for it, and also like how do you carry? Eventually, we can get there, but how do you carry this job? I didn't write this in I sent some like questions over. Like we might talk about this. We hardly ever. But like how do you keep that posture that's like it's a job, and I have to do this well. I want to do this with excellence, but also like in God, like knowing your identity, in that place. Sure. But how did you get started? Like school, like tell me. I actually have no idea. I don't know.
Yeah. So since I was a little kid, was going to be a doctor.
Wow.
Yeah, completely different path. And so I went to, I worked at the University of Texas Medical Branch in hyperbarics and major wound care. Yeah.
What? This is great.
Yep. And then I went to a Point Loma University down in San Diego. it was like a path to pre-med, basically. Whoa. And that was the medical school was the path. And God just made a radical change in my life. And I woke up one day and I knew that wasn't it.
Whoa.
And I had actually applied already to Brooks Institute of Photography that's up here in Santa Barbara.
It used to be right here too.
Yes.
Used to have one in Ventura.
Yeah. And so I had already applied, but it was just kind of like dabbling, and because I did photography for fun. I had done like a city college class with my mom and like learned how to develop in the darkroom and stuff like that. And but it was always going to be medical school, and so I was down in San Diego and just made this radical change that I was supposed to go to Brooks, and so basically hit them up and was like, hey, I know I turned you guys down, but actually I'd like to go. And Brooks went through a bunch of changes, but at the time it was one of the top 3 photography schools in the nation.
Yeah, my sister was going to go too, back in like 2010.
Yeah, so when I went to school there, it was still owned by Ernie Brooks, or Ernie Brooks Jr., and one of the top 3 photography schools in the nation. You had to have top SAT scores to get in. I had to do a 10-page paper on why I like made a mistake turning them down.
Holy cow!
Like, yeah, and then all of the professors at the time were top photographers and videographers in the industry, actually working in the industry. And you already had to have a working portfolio and go in front of a panel of judges just to get in. Then
let me convince you.
He ended up selling the school, and they got bought by a corporation. They then got bought by another corporation. Basically, it was like, hey, you got $5 in your pocket, come on in, and the school ended up going bankrupt. And
dang,
it's not
I wonder
anymore.
where it became over here, Scientology Church.
Yeah,
remember that building that used to be? It was so cool. Anyway,
but I was actually the last class to graduate through the old regime when it was still like all my credits transferred to UC schools and all that kind of stuff. So I just like barely scooted through. So
they let you in.
They let me in, and then I had this dream of like working for National Geographic, and like thought like I wanted to be a nature photographer. That was the thing. And also I got into scuba diving. I love scuba diving. And so I was like, well, maybe my path to like National Geographic is like underwater photography. Mm-hmm. So I was a still photographer.
How fun.
I didn't do any video.
Okay.
I was a still photographer only. Still photography program. And part of the still photography program, you had to take a video class, like one video class. And then the final thing in that video class was creating your own kind of little movie, which I actually just found on my hard drive the other day.
Whoa,
this old movie that I made, my first little movie. And then we did a vote of whose video was the best, and I won the competition.
Oh, thank goodness for that class.
And that professor was an underwater cinematographer, like actually working as an underwater cinematographer. And he told me, he said, there is nobody in the professional industry that is making a full-time living as an underwater photographer only. It's just part of their portfolio.
Yeah, right.
But there are people that you can do underwater cinematography full-time. You're really good at this video stuff. Like, I think you should pursue video as well.
And you were like you're kind of already interested in it?
Yeah. So I ended up going underwater cinematography.
What?
Bought like $80,000 worth of underwater video gear and went through. So yeah. So they had basically Brooks had like a kind of like master's program in underwater photography, cinematography.
This is
so
cool.
We spent 3 months at the Channel Islands on boats for a class.
Whoa.
3 months.
That's awesome.
Getting school
like
credit
all the
for that.
Places you've been.
Yeah. So I've literally spent thousands of hours at the Channel Islands. I have the Channel Islands tattooed on my ribcage actually, because it's one of my favorite places. Out of everywhere I've been all over the world.
That's so cool. Right here.
So I got an internship working for an underwater production company right out of school, and her second camera and an video editor were on their way out, and so they were basically like, we're gonna crash course train you. And like overnight, I was her second camera and her chief video editor.
Great timing.
And so going from being a still photographer, all of a sudden I was just like thrust into the video world. And for 3 years, I worked with her and traveled all over the world.
Were you already married at that point?
No.
Okay.
No.
You were like still on the dating apps, or like not yet?
Yeah. I had a girlfriend for a while during that period, but yeah, this was long before.
Okay.
Long before my wife.
Okay.
Yeah.
There's so much to dig into.
I
can't go down that rabbit hole because that's a good story.
I know. I feel like there's would be hours long. So long story short, that's how I got into video, and then after 3 years traveling the world with her, it was time. I felt like it was time for me to separate and start my own company.
Yeah.
And so
wait, real quick, where was the coolest place besides the Channel Islands? We went with her.
With her, probably
just because I'm curious.
Yeah, probably Guadalupe Island off the coast of Mexico to film the great white sharks.
Oh, whoa.
So yeah,
cool.
Yeah, I have some crazy footage of me with great white sharks.
We gotta like post some like stories. We should like add some stories to this week's like. We'll probably put something up. Be like, look.
Yeah.
But
overall, actually, another story we can talk about is years later after I started my own company and she moved to Seattle, Washington. She called me and said, "Hey, I got this opportunity to go to the Arctic on one of only 2 icebreakers that can go unassisted with the Coast Guard.
Gosh.
To the North Pole.
Oh my gosh.
And so I was like, I took the trip and spent 60 days
with the
Coast Guard.
And cold.
Yeah. And filmed wild polar bears on the sea ice, 1,000
so
miles
cool.
from land. So that overall, that is the coolest trip that I've ever been on. It was a very hard trip, but it was like once in a lifetime. Like I'll never get to go to another planet, but getting to do that was the closest thing to going to another planet. We discovered they had a rover that they broke the ice apart and sent this unmanned submarine down to 9,000 feet and collecting species, and they found 7 new never discovered species.
All right, wait a second. You got to, is this the one where you have one like you got to name?
Yeah.
Can we talk about that?
Yeah.
Are you allowed to talk about that? You said you couldn't talk about it.
Yeah, years ago I signed an NDA, but I it's probably fine now. I don't really know what the time limit on that was.
Whoops.
But yeah, no, just because the scientists, which I didn't know until I went on that trip, that before scientists publish their work, other scientists, if they can get a hold of it, will race them to it. And even though it was their discovery, someone else can steal that. Yeah, and if they swipe them, which is crazy. Yeah. So they have to be like very careful about who knows. But yeah, 7 new species were discovered, and they woke me up in the middle of the night, and one of these creatures was coming off the sub, and it was like a deep sea pelagic jellyfish that looked like it had fangs. And I told the scientist, it was just him and me, I'm filming, and I was like, it looks like it has purple fangs, like it should be called the vampire jelly. And he's like, I love that name. And so to this day, it's called the vampire jelly. Yeah.
Let's go. Yeah. Naming things like what's his face? Like Adam. Come on, that's so good. So then you take us further on that journey. So how are you here today? Not just live streaming with church, but all that you're doing, and like what you're live streaming and filming, and like you get gigs in Santa Barbara or like other places too, and like it just, people just know who you are. They just contact you like
word of mouth.
He's been into Antarctica. He's been to so come on over.
Yeah. In this industry, so much of it is word of mouth, and it's kind of sad, but like my degree doesn't really matter a whole lot. Like nobody in 17 years has ever asked to see my college degree. It's all about who was the last person you worked with, who vouches for you. And so for me to like pick up and move somewhere else in the country, like there would be no way for me to start over again. Like it's years and years, and I almost gave up a couple of times. Almost went back to nursing school.
Yep.
Yep. And
it was just like, why? What was it that did it? Because
I couldn't support myself. I couldn't support myself, and I knew I had
based
done
on how many you get.
Yeah, and I had done my time in LA. Like most of the people I went to school with either went to live in LA or San Francisco or New York City, and I just knew that I didn't want to do the big city thing. I had done a handful of jobs in Hollywood and did not like the scene there.
Wow.
I wanted to stay here. And it was just kind of all falling apart. And so I went back to medicine and Channel Islands University that's right here.
Oh, you did go back to medicine? You should.
Well, I got accepted. I got accepted into their nursing program.
Wow.
And I was just praying about it. I'm like, God, is this the right thing? Is this what I'm supposed to do? And he answered that prayer very quickly. And all of a sudden, overnight, the jobs just started coming in like crazy.
Wow.
And huge opportunities in production.
That's
and
so
I was
cool.
like, okay, I'm supposed to stick with
production.
When
was that? What year was that? Or more or less?
This was long before my wife. So I don't know, 10 years ago.
So you were like, okay, gonna keep going. What was there like at that point where you're like, okay, you were praying, so that's cool. You knew God back of the. How long have you been knowing? Like when you
I grew up.
Why do you say that so funny? How long have you known God? Like how? Yeah.
I grew up in the church.
Okay.
So my parents helped start a Calvary Chapel in Houston, which is where I grew up. And so, like my earliest memories as a little kid was Bible studies, like in my living room. So yeah, and then
so you were like already praying. You already knew, like you wanted.
Yeah,
you did like ask God, okay, what should I do? You've known
100%. Yeah, and then when I moved to Santa Barbara, I was with Reality. So
oh my gosh,
Reality
yes.
Carpinteria.
Yes.
So I joined them. My first time going there was their 1 year anniversary. So I literally like helped put up the drywall.
When was that?
In that building.
Who knows?
I don't know.
I went there too.
I don't know. Did you?
Yeah, but I went there when I was in high school. Just a little sidebar. I snuck in because it was their young adults group.
Okay.
It was their what was
that
it
would
called?
be so crazy if we saw each other.
Yeah, and I think Parker went there too.
It's totally possible.
He went. I would go there on the nighttime. What was it called? Not Emmaus. Was it what was it called? I don't remember. But we would go, and I was like, I'm like a junior in high school, and I snuck in because I was like, I'm hungry. I want to be here.
Yeah.
But anyway, that was a fun time. Sorry, to backtrack. That was a little.
So yeah, so I've been in the church my whole life, and was with Reality for years before we found Two Trees, and then we moved down here and found Two Trees. Yeah.
Yeah. So then going back into that industry and thinking, okay, I'm going to do this again. I'm going to do it differently. Or was it like, let's just go. I got jobs. I'm just going to survive. Was it like?
Yeah. It's very much a survival thing. There's no job security in freelance production. So I've never had a 9 to 5 ever. Gosh. My whole life. I've always just done this.
Do you like that though?
I like it. I like the freedom of it. But and when I was single, it was a lot easier to do. But having a family now, having 3 kids, right? So like, not having that job security is like it's up to me to make the jobs happen. Yeah. So
wow, how has it evolved over time, and then through marriage, and like how has this company or your job, like how have you seen God work in it, and that like the balance of like, okay, I have to do this. There's like all of us have to do this. We all have a job, but then how do you find him in the midst of it, you know?
Right. Yeah.
Like,
well, and the production industry hasn't really changed much since the 80s. Like there is a lot, and that's something that we can get into.
Yeah.
There's a lot of evil.
Okay. Tell us. I have no idea. I mean, I do know my conspiracy theories, but I don't know what the truth.
So there's definitely a lot of, and something else that I want to say is like, even though I grew up in the church, I've never been a closed-minded Christian. Like, and I've said this before to other people, is like, I don't believe because my parents believe, or because when I was a kid my Sunday school teacher told me to believe. I have always been open-minded and open to finding God somewhere else. Yeah, and because of production, it has allowed me to travel all over the world, and then we might touch on some of my past with drugs as well. And so I have literally traveled the world and been to Jewish temples and Hindu temples and every religion that you can think of, looking for God somewhere else. Like, is Jesus the only one?
So you were seeking. You're like, God, is this really?
Yeah.
Is there another way?
I was just open. I was open to, is there another way? And even through I've done a lot of extreme sports, and big wave surfing and flying hang gliders and all this crazy stuff. And then I experimented a lot with drugs, especially psychedelics. And so things like I experimented with DMT, which I don't know if you know anything about DMT, but they say it's like the spirit molecule, and it opens up a gateway and stuff. And I 100% that it's not just in your head. It does open a gateway, but it's not to where you think it is.
Whoa.
And I definitely learned that the hard way. And so I
want to hear about that.
Yeah. So I was open to finding God somewhere else. And I'm not lying when I say that I have traveled the world looking to see if you can find somewhere else other than Jesus. I have tried with drugs and all of these different things to find him somewhere else. And the God of the Bible, Jesus, is the only way. There is no other path. I have looked for it everywhere. There is no other path
Matt,
that you can find that pure, untainted love.
Wow.
It does not exist anywhere else.
You're like, I've searched, I've done all the drugs to try to get something else. I've done
to try and find it anywhere, and I can't. Yeah. And so it's like, you know, I don't want people to think like, you know, when I witness to someone and they're like, oh, well, you grew up in the church and it's like, you know, this has just been your thing. And it's like, no, I've always been open-minded.
Like I've done everything to try to not do.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Wow. And I can tell you through my experiences that is the only way.
Wow. That is so good. Yeah. Thank you for sharing that. That's so good. So does it ever come up in your workplace? Like when you're, I don't actually know what I say workplace. It's not really workplace.
Well, that's the thing is my workplace is someplace different every week.
But when you're hired for jobs and people start talking to you, does it ever come up or is it like, okay, I gotta kind of, how do you do that? Like, how do you, does God ever come up or is it mostly like just how you present yourself and like how well you do?
Yeah. Like, a lot of the times
this is a totally different world for me.
Right. A lot of the times it is just how I present myself. There have over the years been opportunities, but it's just kind of like if God opens that door. Mm-hmm. But I do have some crazy stories of not necessarily opportunities to witness to people, but of darkness.
Yeah, let's go.
Where I've had to deal with it. One that comes to mind is Santa Barbara is infamous for Fiesta.
Yeah.
And so there's like Fiesta, State Street Fiesta, where everybody's partying and the eggs and stuff like that. And then there's like the hardcore Fiesta, which is like which is for people that are truly like indigenous.
Wow.
Right. And they take it very seriously. It's not just like a party for them necessarily. It's like much more spiritual, religious for them. And so we're filming at this. Well, I don't know if we were at a Mission or like one of those old Santa Barbara kind of buildings. And at the end, they were wrapping up. And so we had 3 camera positions and there was a dance floor. They had built this dance floor. So I'm up front on my camera position.
Because you're filming this.
Filming this, right. I'm up front right at the edge of the dance floor and the other 2 cameras and the sound table and everything are further back kind of out of the mix. And as they're wrapping up their show, they're like, we're going to open up into a party. Like we're gonna have they're gonna open up the dance floor and like everybody's gonna have a good time now that the like formal on stage stuff is over.
Right.
And they're like, we're gonna open up with some traditional dances. And all of these people come out wearing demon masks. Like 50 plus people and children too, little kids that have no idea what they're doing. And not like Halloween masks, like really, really good,
like
crafted masks of like lamb's heads, bull's heads with the horns and the blood coming out of the mouth and all of this crazy stuff. One guy had this big whip, like a 15-foot whip, and he's cracking the whip, and it's like, and instantly I could feel the shift.
Whoa.
The darkness. They turned all of the lights red and everybody comes out and they're doing their dances, and it's like, I've filmed some weird stuff before, and it's not always like, okay, just because the lights are red and they're wearing like, you know, these scary masks
you can see
doesn't mean that there's like, but you could feel the evil drop.
Whoa.
And it was so tangible.
And that was the party scene after?
Everybody's coming out, they're walking out, dancing and doing their thing. And I felt bad for these little kids that are just growing up in this and have no idea what they're doing. And it was, you felt the evil drop. And so I'm still supposed to be filming this as everybody's coming out and dancing.
Yeah, what do? You got to film it.
So as I'm filming, I just start praying in my head, and I'm just like rebuking the evil because I can just feel it, like the tingle, the thick, the saturation. You know, it's like, I think most of us have felt that at some point. And the craziest thing is that this one woman, I swear, I just knew it was a woman because of her body. She's wearing one of these crazy masks. Could sense that I was praying. She could feel it.
I bet.
She could feel the battle. And she slowly started walking circles around me while I'm filming, and then just stopped at my peripheral with her mask on and turned her head sideways and just stared at me. And I could feel her energy that she could tell that I was praying. And just a really freaky situation.
I've been there before. Not the same. I just want to say that is so real. I mean, I feel like some people have probably been in that kind of like a feeling. I remember just quick, I was at a park and I felt like God sent me to that park, and it was 2013. It was a while ago. And I went to the park in Thousand Oaks and I stood on a rock and I put in my headphones and my iPod and I was like worshiping. And I remember like it became like warring worship. Like I was standing and just like, and I remember singing and moving and I was like not afraid to feel it. And I was like pretty alone. And I turned my head and there's a woman so similar. And she's like over there, like yards away. And she's like pacing also. And she's like doing like body movements and flicking and like, and she's like keeps looking over at me. And I'm like, what the heck? Yeah. And then I just keep worshiping. And the God said it was like a witch. Like she was doing her whatever. And she kept coming closer and closer. And it was just, anyway, I'm not going to go on about it, but she ended up coming up to me. And
of course she did,
of course. Yeah. Of course. Yeah. And there was a whole thing that happened, but it wasn't a big deal. I was just like, Jesus, like he's the way. Like she was asking me questions. She knew I was worshiping. And it's just crazy that they are attracted to you. Yeah. And like you can feel that the battle in the spirit.
Right. And not only we can feel it, but they can feel it.
They can feel it.
Yeah.
And like then so you're just praying. Yeah. And you're like rebuking, like you said. That's crazy. Mm-hmm. Has that happened? Like, and what was another example like that? Have you?
So kind of a
different.
Different situation, but
this is real though. I just want people to hear this is like the spirit realm out there also, and this is why we need the church. And just praying is so strong and so powerful, shifting things.
Yeah, I think it's easy to get caught up and not realize that there's spiritual battles going on every single day.
Like the church needs to leave the building.
Yeah.
Like it needs to go out because this is what we're talking about. Like
100%.
There's huge opportunity. Anyway.
100%.
Yeah.
Another story that comes to mind that's a little different, but I got an opportunity. I have to kind of take the work, right? It's like we've even had situations where I've had to like jump out because I have another job because it's like I gotta take the job
from one job to another
or just because there's no job security. So if I'm like, oh sorry, I don't want to take that job because I don't like what you guys are doing, it's like, okay, can I pay my rent or my mortgage this month, right? You know, kind of thing. And so I got an opportunity to film for Planned Parenthood. And I was very unsure about it, but I was like, I need the work, it's just a job. And so I go there and I film for them. And at the end of it, there were a bunch of protesters that showed up. And they're all yelling and screaming and talking directly to me, like through the fence. And I felt so bad being there. And literally they went to hand me the check. And in front of the protesters are back behind the fence, but they were like out in the open and they're handing me the check. And I felt like I wasn't supposed to take the money. And I'm like standing there and the lady's like, why aren't you taking the check? And like, and I finally reached out and I took it. And like all these protesters are like screaming at me like, why are you here? Why are you doing this? And I was like, I got in my car with that check and I was just like in tears and I wanted to rip up the check so badly.
Oh my gosh.
I was like, this is not clean money.
Yeah.
But I need to pay my rent. Like I need this check. Right? It's like, what do I do? And so I was like, I have to keep the money. And so I did, but I prayed about it and I asked God for forgiveness and he came through and redeemed. Literally, like, I don't know if it was a day or two later, I get a call for a job to work for Network Medical, which is the complete opposite. It's a Planned Parenthood. They are a 100% Christian organization that saves babies, and like they're having their big yearly event, and like to feel so guilty about that, and like praying, and like instantly God's like, here you go, and I get a job for Network Medical, and that I've worked over the years like 5 different jobs for Network Medical now.
Oh my gosh, that's so cool. Yeah. Okay, wait, pause for a sec. So, first of all, wow, your heart to like feel that, but then still like it just makes me think of all the stories with Jesus, like walking. I could cry, but like walking with him, even Peter, and like saying like I don't know him, you know, and like in that moment. But then Jesus isn't like go away, you know. He's like, I knew you were gonna do that, and like I still love you, and it's okay. There's so much grace, you know,
100%,
so much grace that like. Those are tough moments. Yeah. Like, okay, I'm going to provide for my family. But, like, what would you recommend to somebody in that position? Like, just don't do that. Like, say no and believe that another job will come, like other things? Or would you just say like, you know what, do what you got? Like, what would you?
Right. It's
I
hard.
don't know, that's hard. It's like
It's
weigh
really
it with
hard.
Holy Spirit.
Yeah. I think that was before I've learned a lot from Brad. And seeing the way that he walks, because it's like for a long time I didn't have that faith, right? We're like, Brad 110% believes that God is going to provide, and he just does it. And he just does it. And you know what? God shows up every single time. Every single time. And it's like for me, for a long time, it was like, yeah, like I know that's what I should believe, and like God's gonna show up, but like I need like the sure thing, and this check is the for sure thing, you know, kind of thing. But watching Brad, and it's like, man, it's like I don't even know if I'm 100% there yet, but he is a great example of like, you know, and if you're following that mentality, then the answer is no, you don't take the check. Yeah. And you 110% believe that God is going to provide, and he will.
I feel like that's so good. I feel like there's something on your life for provision, and to a testimony that we have so much more I want to talk about too. There's so much. We'll see if we can get to it.
Yeah.
But I just have to say to you, like, hearing these, I'm like, okay, you have a testimony with provision. Like, 100%. And even if you're in the middle of it and you're feeling like, oh, I'm like so sucking at this or something. Like, I feel that often, because I feel like that's the where you are learning with God and you get authority, that's where you have the authority. You have permission and authority to let that out and show people. And that it's like, okay, it's more like, especially with this job, because you have the opportunity to take something, and it's like the industry does that. I mean, the spirit of the industry is so much like, I'm gonna follow this. It's gets me success, the money, and sometimes it's like noble, like it's for my family,
right?
But it's just like so easy, and I feel like in that industry, it's a
justification. It's still a and like,
or am I gonna follow the spirit and like believe in provision from God?
Yeah.
But
no, it's I always say the devil works in baby steps and justifications.
Oh.
And it's always, and like it, you know, stepping into my past with drugs, it's the same thing. It's like,
go for it. Let's go.
A baby step in the wrong direction, and it's like, and then a justification. I didn't do anything wrong. It's just a little teeny, you just went this way, a little teeny bit, another little baby step, another justification, over and over again, until you become someone that you don't recognize.
Whoa. You know? Someone needs to hear that. That's so good. Okay, let's go. I want to hear a little bit about that. So like, what, if you don't have to share what that baby step was, but like, when was that? How did you get involved with that, with the drugs, and how did you get out? I guess you don't have to go too quickly. You can take your time if you want.
Sure.
I do want to hear about that, because it is connected with that.
Yeah. Yeah. And I've just like, I talked to you about this, you know, beforehand, that like, so I was a heroin addict.
Wow.
Yeah. Yeah. And
did that just happen? Like,
no. Yeah. Baby steps.
Baby steps. Yeah.
Baby steps and justifications. What? And I know it's hard looking at me today to be like, what, you know, kind of thing. And that was something that for a long time, even after my sobriety, that I hid. And a handful of people here at church know, but this is like my first time, like,
thank you for
publicly sharing that. But I don't want to hide anymore. Like, I want my past to be a testimony of what God can do.
So good.
And not feel like I have to hide that.
That's so good. This is a great space to do it.
Yeah.
The Authentic Faith podcast. Right. People listening, they want to hear the truth.
Yeah.
And I'm sure,
we have,
so many people.
I would guarantee we have people in our congregation right now that are struggling with that, you know? And it's, and the story is a story that you hear over and over. I actually had a hang gliding crash, and the doctor gave me pills for that. And I really liked the way that the pills felt. And then the pills were gone, and the devil stepped right up, and I didn't have any connections for that kind of thing. And as soon as the pills were gone, all of a sudden someone came to me and was like, hey, I've got a buddy who has a big bag of Vicodin. And
they just came to you?
Just came to me.
See, it's like it's attracted to you when you, it's so 100%. Crazy.
100%. So I didn't even have to seek it out. It literally came to me. And then I was like, well, I'll just, these will last me a long time. I'll keep them forever. And it's like, I'll only take them like when I have a headache or maybe I have a long flight on a plane or something like that. And that's what I did for a little bit until I had a friend, quote unquote friend, who was like, whoa, you have all those Vicodin? He's like, and you only take them every once in a while? And I was like, yeah. He's like, man, if it was me, I'd just take them all the time until they were gone. I'd take them every day until they were gone.
Gosh.
And for whatever reason, that stuck in my head. And I was like, take them every day until they're gone. That's really what he would do. And I'm like, I guess I could just take them more frequently.
Wow, it's like some permission you needed.
Like a permission. Yeah.
Wow.
And so another crazy part of this is that my brother died of a heroin overdose. Right before this all happened.
Oh.
And when he first died, if you had come to me and said, Matt, you're going to become a heroin addict, I would have been ready to get physical.
Yeah.
I would punch you in the face for
hurts.
that.
I'm sorry.
Yeah.
Wow.
I'd be like, there is no way that I would ever touch the drug that killed my brother. Absolutely not. But one baby step and one justification at a time, one little teeny step, it led to that.
But you're hurt. So it's like, you don't always see, like, why would I do that? But if you're hurting physically, emotionally, in any way, and you were like, I want to, like, I don't want to feel this, perhaps, or that's often.
Yeah, because that was right after my brother's death.
So it's like, of course I don't want to because this is what you died from, but like, I want to maybe mask. I'm just processing that out loud. But maybe you don't want to feel some things. Like, it's not intentionally like, oh, I'm going to do what he used. Like,
Right.
Wow.
Yep.
So then you were like, okay, I'm just gonna.
And I think the thing that was most dangerous with me, and I guarantee you, there's other people that are in similar situations or have been, is that I was a functioning addict. A lot of people, when they become addicts like that, their life falls apart. They spend all of their money. They lose their job. They become homeless. They hit rock bottom. There was no rock bottom for me. I was an active member at my church.
Wow.
I had a great job. All these friends, everything. Where if anybody looked at me on social media or even my friends that knew me, nobody had any idea. Nobody had any idea. Everybody who knew me, they would all say, Matt's got a great life.
Wow.
He's out surfing and flying hang gliders, and he's got this great job, and he lives in Santa Barbara. He's got it all together. And so that was very dangerous because it made it easy for me to be like, I've got it.
Sustainable.
I've got this figured out. And
I hear a lot. I work in overdose prevention.
Right. Yeah.
We had on Ashley Nettles a few weeks ago, and she's my boss in that. She's right over me, and we see that so many people think that it's just a homeless problem. It's only in Ventura. It's downtown Ventura. It's only a homeless thing. Actually, it's all over the county. Actually, it's people who are in their homes and functioning, and like my dad was using opioids, and he was functioning with his job and working like full time and functioning, and we kind of knew something was up because we know him well enough and we saw some signs, but not really functioning. So it's not just a thing for homeless people. So
and the functioning
all
addict,
over. In the church, out of the church.
Yeah.
And the functioning addict. Yeah.
The functioning addict is way more dangerous.
That's crazy.
It's way more dangerous.
That's wild with your equipment too, and just doing your job. And did you ever not remember?
Not on a job. I don't think I ever screwed up a job. And that's part of being the functioning addict, as I was able. It actually made me superhuman, where I would have a meeting with a client, and so I would use before I went in with my meeting with my client, and it would make me I have a. You might not think this talking to me now, but I was an introvert for a long time, and so it's the client would leave and be like, wow, Matt's really on top of that. He's super excited about this project, kind of thing. And so it would be bump it da, here we go, kind of thing.
How did you transition from that feeling and now? What's shifted? You don't need that now to be able to,
And, I didn't, like I said, I never, people are like, what was your rock bottom moment? And I don't know that I had a concrete rock bottom moment. I just, something changed in my faith.
Wow.
Where I got really serious about my faith. And God just flipped a switch in my brain where,
so good.
and I had tried quitting before and getting sober, and it felt like swimming upstream.
Whoa.
And it's like, yeah, I can swim upstream for a little bit, but eventually you're going to get tired and the current's going to take you back. And when I got sober for good, I wasn't swimming upstream anymore.
Wow.
It was just done. Overnight, it was done.
Wow.
It was done. All of it.
Wow.
And I mean, I was smoking pot, I was drinking. All of it was just the switch flipped and it was done.
That's crazy.
Yeah.
What happens when you're like, God, I really want you and I want like change my life. It's not like I'm trying to make this happen on my own. Yeah. It's like transform me.
Yeah.
I'm sick of this life. Like, it was affecting things, or was it just, you said it was so hidden, but like, that's just
no, it was definitely affecting things, and it became very dark.
Wow.
But just for me, nobody on the outside knew. But I think one of the coolest redeeming things that God did, and I'm not gonna name names, but there's someone who's close to the church who was dealing with something similar fairly recently, and God gave me the opportunity to walk him through that as someone who had been through it. And I had people who guided me out of some really dark times, but that was the first time that I was leading someone else, and it really felt like God was like, here you go.
Yeah.
And for me to, I mean, like getting out of bed in the middle of the night, you know, when I'm getting a phone call, things are not good, and really walking that person through that each and every day.
Like
and
a mentor.
Seeing, and the person that they are today is just incredible. And it was such a gift for, after everything I had been through, for God to allow me to do that.
That is so cool.
It was very cool.
And I feel like he blesses business even more. Like when you're like, just here it is, have it all.
Yeah.
Like, and I feel like I just pray that like he opens your eyes in each of your, what do you call it? Like you got hired for jobs.
Yeah.
And that he would even come in harder. Like that when you do see a witch or something happen, something dark, that you would have, like, you would know even more authority. Like
100%.
And be able to completely be like, live in your identity in those areas.
Yeah. Yeah. Yep.
What would you,
Well, just, you know, like there's so much more.
I know.
There's so much. There's not time to get into all of it.
We need like 2 hours. I've seen this every week.
I haven't even talked about the one and only time that I physically saw a demon with my eyes open, and that was inside my house.
Whoa.
Sleeping next to my daughter.
Was this when you were still using drugs, or was this?
This was right around the time that I was transitioning.
Like battling?
I think I was sober at that time. But basically what it was is that, you know, and Brad has talked about this before, that as we, even my wife too, pushed into God and we're really making this push, the attack of the enemy came.
Oh, totally.
100%.
Yeah.
And the problem is that even though we were pushing into God, we weren't ready for battle. We weren't wearing the full armor. Yeah. And
that changes everything.
You know, it's like I look at my family unit as like a fortress, right? It's like I've got the north wall, Priscilla's got the south wall, the kids are safe inside, but all the devil needs is a crack, a little weak part of that rubble that he can get inside, or a Trojan horse that you let in the front door, and he will burn that fortress down from the inside out. Oof. He will rot it like cancer.
Whoa. So what do you do? What did you do differently then? You're like, put on the armor, or it's like, prepare?
So I mean, first of all, I was reading my daughter a bedtime story, and felt like I was forced into a sleep. Like I was reading the story, I was midway through the story, and felt like I had taken drugs, like sleep aid, right? Like where I'm like trying to hold my eyes open. I'm like, what is happening?
Whoa.
Fall asleep, wake back up, And when I wake up, I'm paralyzed. Like I can move my fingertips, but that's it. And I can see that I'm next to my daughter and I see a shadow coming down the hallway. And I think, oh, it's Priscilla coming to check on me. Like, why haven't I come to bed? And this dark figure walks into the room, the evil, you could feel the evil, and stood over me and my daughter in our room.
Oh my gosh.
And after that happened, I was able to, it went away and I got unparalyzed. I was able to get up and I could still feel it in the house, like electricity.
So you're like, let's go.
And so, and so I was.
Was this before you learned kickboxing?
No, yeah, I was already, I think I was doing kickboxing at that time.
That's another.
Right,
yeah.
right.
Whoa.
One of the scariest things that's ever happened to me, but a couple of things that I've learned, we were actually talking about this in our Thursday night men's Bible study, is that the devil can't hear your thoughts like God can. And so when you're rebuking a demon, you have to do it out loud.
Mm-hmm. That's good.
And I wasn't, when I was going around the house after that happened, I wasn't saying it out loud. I was doing it in my head. And the other thing that the Bible says is that even if you do rebuke a demon, that I think it says he'll come back with stronger. Stronger.
Yeah.
Right. And
fill your house with
and we were not prepared for that. And that demon did not leave that night. I'm gonna try not to get emotional.
No, it's okay.
He was there for a while.
Whoa.
And he caused a lot of damage.
Yeah.
A lot of damage. And literally our plants in our house died. Our animals started dying.
What?
My marriage started falling apart.
Whoa.
The world just started crumbling around me. And we had to get ourselves ready for battle and ready for those attacks. And that was a process.
A shift had to come then.
That was a process. Now, my house, I'm not kidding you, every single doorway. Oh, I didn't even mention that my son had a seizure at that same time.
Wow,
and
yes.
the hospital in the middle of the night. And I thought I watched him take his last breath in my arms. The things that happened were just, I mean, there's no coincidence there. It was straight up.
You felt it. You knew it was there. That was happening.
So now every doorway in my house has scripture written around all the insides and the trims of the doorway. All of the windows are anointed with oil.
Yeah.
It's like there can be no cracks in the fortress.
Whoa.
The walls have got to be solid.
Oh my gosh.
You have to be ready for battle.
Yes.
You have to be ready for battle.
Like, this is not a joke. Like what do they say? Gird your loins. Like, let's go. Like, oh, that's so good. Sorry, I'm like growling in the microphone. You're gonna have to help me there. That's so good.
I'm editing this afterwards.
He set up and he's the guest. But so did you feel it shift when did it leave? Like, you felt your plants start alive again? You're like, animals, you got a pig? Like,
and it was literally, and it didn't happen overnight.
In you.
It shifted in me. It shifted in my wife, and it was like, I mean, it was every single day, every single night on my face.
Oh,
and like,
that's so good.
You know, and it's like we were pushing in unprepared. And so it's like when that happens, it's like you almost want to retreat, right? And it's like, no, I just had to, I wasn't using the right weapons.
That's so good.
I had to learn to use the right weapons. And so it was like I wasn't going to men's Bible study. And like I shared some of this with Brad, and Brad was like, men's Bible study tomorrow morning, 6 a.m. You're there.
Yeah.
It's not an option.
Yeah.
You know, kind of thing. And it's like, we had to get ourselves prepared.
And it's not out of like checking off a list. It's just like, this is serious and I want to, it's shifting in me now. Like,
well, and Brad even told me, he's like, when we were building this church, like Shanna would wake up in the middle of the night feeling like there was a hand over her mouth, you know, and things like that. And it's like the more you push in, the more the attacks are going to come, and you got to be ready. It's not something to play around with. So
thank you for sharing that. That's heavy, but that's also tools for people who are listening. Can you give just like what would you leave people with in that? Like, even more, you already have, but like, is there something that you want to like, it can be about the spiritual, it can be about the being prepared and the right tools, whatever, just something to Even think.
Yeah, I would say on the drug end of things, I guarantee you that there's people that are suffering in silence that are listening to this right now that are in our congregation, and they need to know that it's gonna be okay. That if you press into God, if you have the right tools, if you're wearing the armor of God, you know, you can find your way out, and that it's a process. Like this didn't happen for me overnight.
Wow.
You know, it was a process. And so, you know, not that God can't do it overnight, but it's okay if it's a process.
Yeah.
Don't give up, don't retreat, don't back off, and make sure that the walls of your fortress, whatever that looks like,
that's so good,
are secure.
Sounds like very much war talk. Like you just like,
it is.
Yeah.
But it is though, you know, like I said, there's spiritual battles going on around us every single day. And it's like, it's easy to get caught up in the day to day. In production, it's easy for 2 trees to become a job and not realize that the impact we're making with the live stream, with the podcast, with all of these things, and to take a step back and get your priorities right.
Keep it sacred. Yeah, that's so good. I think that's a word for like me. That's so good for everybody just to hear. Like,
I think everybody on staff, it's easy for it to become a job.
Yeah. And also that word that Pastor Brad spoke about a few weeks ago, and then it just keeps as a theme we keep talking about, like there's a shaking coming. There's a shaking now, and everything that will fall and everything that will be shaken will, like everything that can be will.
Yeah.
And like he mentioned in the Bible in Matthew, it's like talks about the virgins with their oil and like having it and being ready and like having, and I just think you said it's not always a quick thing, it's a process. And I think that's the point. The point is a process.
Yeah.
Like taking time with him and going on your knees, kneeling and like surrendering everything. Like it's a process. It's not to be perfect in a moment. Like we're not God.
Well, that's where the refining happens too, right? It's like I really feel like through everything that I've been through and through a lot of pain and suffering, and it's like, yeah, God could have done it overnight. But because there was this process that was painful at times, there was a refining that happened.
Yeah, that's so good.
And it's like, I have 3 beautiful children now. I have years of sobriety. I have an amazing wife. My marriage has never been stronger.
That's so good. You guys are so cute.
Like, yeah.
They fight each other. They literally fight each other.
That's why our marriage is so good.
Priscilla can plank, dude. She is a push-upper. She can.
No, we push in our living room. We push the furniture aside and we literally spar. We have full-on sparring gear. We both do
some goals there.
We both do Muay Thai and kickboxing, MMA.
It's so fun.
It's a passion of ours. But it's like we had to go through some really, both of us, through some really painful moments. But like I said, instead of God doing it right away through this process, we were refined, and the end of it has been, I don't know what the right word to use is, but like, you know, it's the diamond. Like,
yeah,
what, you know, and it's, I think it's a lifelong process. It really is. But where I am right now, I feel so blessed to have 2 trees, to have my business, my family, everything. Like God has really come through.
That's so good.
It's such a blessing.
That's so good. Yeah. Oh, thank you so much. You heard it here first, y'all. Embrace the refining. Surrender and give into it. Embrace the refinement from the Lord. Oh, so good. Thank you.
Yeah.
Yay.
This wasn't as scary as I thought it was going to be. It was good.
We're just hanging. Amen.
Yay.
That's good. We're good.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Thanks, guys.
Like, yes. Bye.
Like, you never know how to end it. You never know how to end it. Those are the best endings, though.
I don't even want to say bye. Just let it fade out.
They're the best endings.